Okay. Yep, okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm Kelly Greene, MLA for Richmond-Steveston and Parliamentary Secretary for Environment. It's my pleasure to join you today at our Vancouver Cabinet offices on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I'm here with Premier John Horgan, Minister of Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, and Chris O'Reilly, President and CEO of BC Hydro. Walking in this morning to our offices here at Canada Place, I savoured the sights and sounds that were all around me. The high-rises, the busy road, the waterfront, and people everywhere at work and play, businesses and factories and green spaces, and the turning leaves, misty mountains, and ocean under the autumn sky. It's a panorama of life, land, and sea that defines this place we call home on the west coast of British Columbia. It's a view that not only showcases the beauty, diversity, and interconnectedness of our urban, ocean, and national environments, but captures the sweep and scale, the challenge and the opportunity for climate action. It reminds us why it's so important, and it's why we're here today. And with that, I'd like to introduce Premier John Horgan.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And I, too, want to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Peoples, and also my colleague and friend, Minister of Energy, Mines, and Low Carbon Economy, Low Carbon Innovation, Bruce Ralston, as well as the CEO of BC Hydro, Chris O'Reilly. From heat waves to wildfires, the devastating effects of climate change are all around us. Although we have multiple crises right now, whether it be the opioid crisis of some 6 years now, of course, the COVID-19 crisis, we also have the extraordinary challenges of trying to deal with a global phenomenon, and that is the warming of the earth and the consequences on human activity. Here in British Columbia, our Clean BC plan is making real progress. We have North America's most progressive plan, and we're regulating emissions of big polluters. We're taking action on targets with accountability, as well as, of course, assisting people in shifting their activities to reduce their carbon footprint and have a cleaner, better life for all of us. But the scale of the climate crisis is enormous, and that requires more activity by government. We need to make sure we are less reliant on fossil fuels. We need to make sure that we can shift away from a fossil fuel economy to a cleaner, greener economy, powered by the water, powered by BC Hydro's clean electricity. We are a powerhouse when it comes to clean electricity. 98% of our electricity is generated through clean, renewable resources. And while we are North America's most aggressive clean power producer, 3/4 of the energy used in British Columbia still depends on fossil fuels, whether it's our cars, whether it's heating and cooking with natural gas, whether it's amounts of fossil fuels. And that needs to change. And that's why we're here today to announce BC Hydro's electrification plan going forward, a path to a cleaner, greener future, powered by BC Hydro's clean electricity. Now, this is an ambitious program that will see over the life of the program a reduction of 900,000 tons per year of greenhouse gas emissions. That will take about 200,000 cars off the road, and we can achieve these goals through practical solutions that Bruce will lay out for you in a minute. Those solutions will lead to what we call energy switching, moving away from fossil fuels and taking up more clean, green, electrified options, like offering homeowners rebates for heat pumps. Already a program underway at the federal and provincial level. BC Hydro will now be supplementing those incentives so that we can accelerate the removal of natural gas and oil and other noxious emissions from our heating sources and change those over to clean energy. We'll see more fast charging stations for electric cars, already a hit here in British Columbia. We'll move from BC Hydro's current 98 fast charging stations to 325 over the life of the program. And that will include also encouraging clean businesses to come to British Columbia, to take advantage of that opportunity to use low carbon energy to create more clean, green activity, like hydrogen production or carbon capture technologies. All of these issues can be addressed by having a coordinated plan. And when I appointed Minister Ralston to the job of Energy Minister, I asked him to work with BC Hydro to bring together the Clean BC programs that were in his ministry and make sure that we were supplementing that activity, taking advantage of the competitive opportunity we have by having a well-run, clean energy production facility through BC Hydro's two-river policy and a whole host of other clean, green generation options. It really does separate us from other jurisdictions in Canada and indeed Western North America. Now is the time for British Columbians to work together with BC Hydro to reduce our personal impact on climate change by switching fuels, by moving to a heat pump, by looking at getting that electric car, by doing what we can to encourage our industries to reduce their emissions by attracting new industries that are low emission producing. So with that, I'll pass the microphone back to Kelly Greene, and she'll move it on to talk more about the electrification plan that we have in store for British Columbians.
Thank you, Premier Horgan. And now I'd like to ask my colleague Bruce Ralston to tell us a bit more about the electrification plan. Bruce is BC's Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation. Bruce.
Thanks very much, Parliamentary Secretary Greene. I'm pleased to join you, Premier Horgan, and BC Hydro's Chris O'Reilly on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Our government and BC Hydro share common goals to shape a clean energy future, support existing clean energy innovation in British Columbia, and bring new clean energy to our province. As the Premier has outlined, BC Hydro's electrification plan sets out ambitious actions and investments that will help us achieve these important goals together with British Columbians. We plan to use BC's clean power advantage, the power of water, to transition away from using fossil fuels like gasoline, diesel, and natural gas to using clean electricity. Over the next 5 years, BC Hydro plans to spend more than $260 million to advance electrification here in British Columbia. This includes more than $190 million to promote fuel switching in homes, buildings, transportation, and industry. Homeowners can benefit from new top-up incentives that could save them an additional $3,000 over existing rebates on an electric heat pump if they're switching from natural gas. Our province leads the country with more than 60,000 light-duty electric vehicles on BC roads, and that number is growing fast. Therefore, we plan to more than triple the number of public fast charging stations by 2025, so EV drivers will have more places to get a quick charge as they travel around the province. We're also providing more than $5 million in incentives and other supports to help businesses move forward with commercial building retrofits and the electrification of new buildings. There's more than $60 million in incentives for industrial fuel switching to encourage our most energy-intensive industries like mining, forest products, and pulp and paper to use less gas and diesel and more electricity to run their operations. As companies around the world look for ways to reduce emissions and improve their environmental profile, BC's clean electricity and strong climate policies look more and more attractive. The plan seizes on that opportunity with more than $50 million to attract new clean industry and investment here to British Columbia. These are just a few of the many programs and incentives included in BC Hydro's new electrification plan. And as the Premier noted, by increasing demand and selling more electricity, BC Hydro rates will be lower than they would have been otherwise. This plan is a win for all British Columbians. BC Hydro is the cornerstone of our clean energy future. This electrification plan builds on the enormous contributions BC Hydro has already made as we work together to reduce emissions and achieve our Clean BC targets. The plan will help people and business take action to lower their environmental footprint and contribute to the fight against climate change. It will attract new investment and innovation to British Columbia, generating economic development and creating good, sustainable jobs. Our government looks forward to working with BC Hydro, Indigenous peoples, stakeholders and communities around the province to implement the plan and power more and more of our lives with water. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Ralston. Chris O'Reilly is the President and CEO of BC Hydro, and I'd invite Chris to the podium to say a few words.
Thank you, Parliamentary Secretary Greene. So I also want to acknowledge that we're here today on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. We're very privileged to be in a relationship with all three peoples. We're very proud of the work we've done on reconciliation with them, and it gives us hope for the future in this week that we mark the first day marking the Truth and Reconciliation Commission work. This is an exciting day for BC Hydro and for all of BC. I want to thank Premier Horgan and Minister Ralston for their support for the electrification plan. For decades, BC's dams and generating stations have been providing clean electricity for homes, for businesses, and for industries. The impacts of climate change, though, continue to confront us. One of the most visible and tragic impacts has been the effect of extreme weather here in BC, the drought conditions and heat wave and fires that caused so much devastation this past summer. British Columbians are looking for ways to make change. Thanks to the clean power advantage we have here in BC, we are well positioned to act on climate change and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. BC Hydro has been supporting electrification initiatives for a number of years, but our electrification plans aims to increase awareness of existing programs and develop new programs to address the barriers to electrification that exist. Through financial incentives, programs, and studies, BC Hydro is offering practical ways for businesses, residents, and industry to make a difference. We have a strong history of delivering on plans to help our customers make good decisions around energy and shaping the province's energy future. The PowerSmart program that was created in 1989 helps our customers manage their demand for electricity. And the program encourages energy conservation and energy efficiency and has yielded great results for our province for many years. It gives BC Hydro customers the tools and the information they need to make a difference. The electrification plan marks the biggest evolution and milestone in PowerSmart in more than 30 years. And we're building on that experience and the success of our conservation programs to again encourage people to use the resources wisely to have the biggest impact. But today, WISE also means using clean electricity to reduce our carbon emissions. In addition to helping existing customers switch, we're also rising to the challenge to bring in new customers to power their businesses with clean electricity from BC Hydro. Globally, companies are seeking to improve their environmental and social and governance profile, and because of our clean power, BC is well positioned to attract new energy-intensive companies. As part of the electrification plan, we will work to ensure it's easier for new customers to connect to our grid. And this move to power our existing economy with clean electricity and attract new customers will help British Columbians by keeping rates affordable. The programs are designed to complement and build upon existing actions and initiatives funded by government and by BC Hydro that are focused on reducing carbon emissions and help support the environmental and economic objectives in the province's Clean BC Climate Action Plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, for all that you and everyone at BC Hydro does for your commitment to a cleaner, brighter, and more sustainable future powered by water. As Parliamentary Secretary for Environment, I am so thankful to have BC Hydro as a working partner for our government to use BC's clean electricity to reduce emissions and stimulate the low-carbon economy and create jobs. You are playing a vital role in Clean BC, and this electrification plan is an important piece as we develop our roadmap to 2030, our detailed plan to meet Clean BC's emissions and clean economy targets. This is the only planet we have. Climate change is real, and it is upon us. Now is the time to seize the opportunity to reduce emissions and grow our low-carbon economy. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to turn it over now to our moderator for any questions from reporters. Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder to everybody on the phone line, please press star 1 to enter the queue. You're limited to one question and one follow-up. First question today is from Lisa Houston, News 1130.
I won the question lotto. Hello, good morning, Premier. Good morning. Obviously, I'm sorry that I'm going to ask about something other than what the topic is today, as much as green energy is fantastic. COVID in schools is something that is gathering most people's attention right now. I know that you have taken a hands-off approach and you have left health to deal with most of this, but we are seeing percentage of cases in children, especially children under 10, increasing. It's gone from 8 to 10% earlier this month to 10 to 20% now. And I'm just wondering, when is the time that you might step in, at least for optics, to do more, to ensure there are masks in school, to do more safety so that parents feel safe sending their kids to school until they can vaccinate them?
Thank you, Lisa, for the question. And just at the outset, I want to say that I have worked hand in hand with Dr. Henry and Minister Dix from the beginning of the pandemic. We made the choice to have Dr. Henry be the primary communicator because there was no need for translation. I think British Columbians want to hear directly from public health officials on how we collectively need to manage our affairs under COVID-19. And I do acknowledge also that there is anxiety in the schools. There's anxiety in communities, as we've seen persistently high case counts when we had anticipated at this point, with over 80% of British Columbians double vaccinated and almost 88, heading to 89% with a single dose, we had anticipated that the modeling predicted that the case count would start to come down. And we said back in May when we launched our four-step plan that it would be guided by the data. As it came to us, we would amend our plans and respond accordingly. And that's exactly what we've done. Dr. Henry and Minister Dix will be available in a few short hours to expand on where we are today and where we need to go. But I want to assure all British Columbians that we have worked on this collectively as a cabinet and working with public health and the health authorities to make sure we're protecting people, we're not seeing a surge in our healthcare system, and our economy keeps moving.
Lisa, do you have a follow-up?
Talking, Premier, about the number of cases we're seeing now, despite the number of vaccinations that there are, the percentage of vaccinations that are in the province, I'm just wondering, I don't know, does it feel like a failure? There's a lot of criticism coming your way for moves that people think should be made, information that people think should be provided, and steps people think should be taken that haven't been. And so I'm wondering, does it feel like a failure? How does it feel to see that we're at this state, a year and a half into this, past a year and a half into this?
Well, we have been responding every day to changing circumstances. We've had variants of concern, as we've discussed with you and your station and all media for the past number of months. We have a particularly virulent strain today that is transmissible largely through those that have not yet been vaccinated. We have a pandemic of the unvaccinated at the present time, which includes those under 12, and we need to be conscious of that. Dr. Henry is very well aware of that. We have been working with stakeholders within the K-12 system to try and ensure that we reduce anxiety for parents, reduce anxiety for children, and also keep them where they are safest, which is in our classrooms. That will perhaps mean more changes, and I'll leave that to Dr. Henry to lay them out for you in the context with which I think British Columbians want to hear about this. But I don't believe that there's any reason to talk about success or failure. What we need to do is continue to bear down, as we have been doing collectively for the past 19 months, and together we'll get through this. And if you have a friend who's not vaccinated, encourage them to do so. If you have a family member who's waiting for more data, tell them to look at those who are pleading with their family members to get vaccinated from ICU beds, not just here in British Columbia, but indeed around the world. We have solutions, we have tools available to us. It starts by making sure we drive up our vaccination rates and protect those vulnerable populations to the best of our ability.
Next question is from Lisa Cordasco, Vancouver Sun.
Good morning, Premier. I, too, want to broach a different topic. I'd like to ask about Fairy Creek. What strategies, ideas, or actions is your government working on to end the blockades at Fairy Creek?
Well, there was, as you know, an injunction sought by Teal Jones, not by the province of British Columbia, but by a company that has timber harvesting rights in that territory, not rights that were granted by this government, but that were granted decades ago. Our entire forestry infrastructure is the result of 100 years of evolution, and we are at a point now where Forest Minister Katrine Conroy has laid out an intentions paper for what the forest industry will look like in the next century. And that involves more value and less volume. That involves making sure we're protecting those special places. That's why it was this government, not the previous government, but this government, that put in place the old growth review in the first place. It was this government that embraced all 14 of the recommendations. And I think the broader public understands that when you're making transformative changes in a foundational industry, you can't do that with the waving of a wand. We've been working with a technical panel to burrow down on just what areas are most important, where do we need to act right away, and we've also been doing that with our partners on the land, the rights and title holders, the people who have been here for millennia, First Peoples, Indigenous peoples, and in the case of Fairy Creek, it's the Pacheedaht Nation, and they have said quite clearly that they do not want to see logging in Fairy Creek or in the Central Wallbrand, and those areas have been deferred. That has not dissuaded the individuals who believe that it is their right to defy the law, is their right to disregard the 5 requests by the Pacheedaht to leave their territory, and they remain. Is this an intractable problem? Yes, it is. Does it frustrate me? Every single day. But I think the majority of British Columbians understand that if we are going to make progress on difficult issues, we have to do it together. And the RCMP is not directed by government. I've said that numerous times. The court issued an injunction. The court then directed the police to enforce the injunction, and that's where we are today. I know that British Columbians want to save special places. So does this government. And we're working on that. We'll have an announcement in the next number of weeks. We've had multiple visits to Cabinet to make sure we get it right. And I think that's what British Columbians want to see, a government that's responsive, that listens, and follows a clear path, which we've laid out over the past 4 years, to protect our old growth forests, to transform forestry for communities, for workers, and the province.
Lisa, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. So, if we look back historically, in the case of Clayoquot Sound, for example, those protests ended when then Premier Mike Harcourt announced how and where and by whom logging could take place and where it would occur. So how do you envision the dispute at Fairy Creek coming to an end?
Well, I think you've hit the challenge, Lisa. We have said that the individuals that are continuing to squat in Pacheedaht territory refused to accept yes for an answer. They said no logging in Fairy Creek. And the Pacheedaht and the government agreed with that, and there is no logging in Fairy Creek. Despite that, they persist. The situation in Clayoquot involved a negotiation and a discussion with people about the way forward. There is no opportunity to do that at Fairy Creek because there is no leadership per se. It's a collective of people who do not want to listen to the rights and title holders, the Pacheedaht people. They do not want to listen to the courts, and they're certainly not going to listen to me because I've made it abundantly clear that no logging is going to take place there. We're working through deferrals in other parts of British Columbia with rights and title holders, Indigenous peoples. We need to engage on the socioeconomic impacts of all of this. It's not a simple proposition, but one that we take very seriously, and we're going to continue to press forward. If that doesn't meet the needs of those who are using extraordinary tactics to draw attention to themselves at Fairy Creek, then I say I'm sorry for them, but for the rest of British Columbia, they want me to stay the course, protect what's important, and keep our economy going.
Richard Zussman, Global News.
The federal government has offered British Columbia many times access to rapid tests. The province has largely turned down those rapid tests. Do you think British Columbia needs to now access some of these to implement them at places like schools and potentially hospitals and other healthcare settings in order to give that extra layer of protection?
Industry is using rapid tests in various parts of British Columbia. I don't know, Chris, are you using rapid tests? BC Hydro is using rapid tests. I was rapid tested when I visited fire camps this summer. So there is a wide distribution of rapid testing technologies, and they're improving all the time in terms of their accuracy, and the costs are continuing to come down. Again, Dr. Henry is overseeing our public health response. but industry and others are responding to take care of their industry, and that's as it should be. I don't believe that we have missed a beat here on trying to make sure that we're bringing forward the best, most focused technologies to protect people. Rapid testing works in some circumstances, not in all. I'll leave it to Dr. Henry to talk about how they could be deployed in our school system.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
Do you think that anyone who goes into a school, any student or adult, should be vaccinated before going into that setting?
I would think that most adults, knowing that they could take a step to protect those around them, would seize that opportunity. We know that the health authorities, federal health authorities, as well as the FDA in the United States, are reviewing or will shortly review the work of one of the major pharmaceutical companies on vaccines for children under 12. We're hopeful that that will move quickly and will be as safe and effective as what we have for adults. If it were me, I would want to do everything I could to protect those around me. That's what I've done, whether it be in a classroom, whether it be in a healthcare setting, whether it be right here today with those assembled from the media. I believe we have the tools at our disposal. It's free, it's safe, it's effective. Everyone who can should get a vaccine as quickly as possible so we can turn the page on COVID and move into a future that involves a whole bunch of other complexities, one of which, of course, is climate action, and why we're here today to talk about a $250 million investment by BC Hydro to help us all reduce our impact. These are the types of things that we've been working on every day in government. These are the things that the public want us to focus on. We have a plan with the federal government to electrify the oil and gas sector to further reduce emissions as we transition to new technologies in that sector as well. I think there's an exciting future ahead of us, but people have to listen to advice from experts, not advice from talk show hosts, with great respect to talk show hosts, or what they might see on their Facebook feed. Public health officials around the world, not just in British Columbia and Canada, have confirmed without any hesitation the safety and effectiveness of vaccination to reduce the transmission of COVID-19. Everyone who has not been vaccinated, I believe, has an obligation to take that step.
Rob Shaw, Check News.
Oh, hi, Premier. Just back to the announcement here. It's a 5-year plan completed in 2025 when I think Site C is supposed to be completed. And I just wanted to ask if any of this emphasis on converting people to the province's abundance of clean electricity would be possible without Site C. And does announcements like this make you look back on your decision to proceed with construction there as the right one?
Well, as I've said from the beginning, Site C is not a project that our government would have started, but it was one that was well underway when we arrived. We are doing our best to contain costs. We're doing our best to ensure that the project can be completed on time to provide clean energy, not just for British Columbians, but for the entire northwestern United States, as well as other provinces in Canada. We need to electrify, all of us, not just British Columbia, but every province and every state in the Union below us need to have access to clean, green energy. British Columbia has for generations been a leader in that regard. I'm confident that Site C's energy will feed that current surplus, but that will be gone in a heartbeat if we continue to electrify at the pace we're at, and we're going to need new sources of supply. I'm confident that technologies, Minister Ralston can talk about that in a moment, like new cutting-edge innovations in hydrogen technologies that can be developed right here in British Columbia will create more jobs, create more clean energy, and further reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. But perhaps I'll ask Bruce to fill in some of those blanks.
Thanks. If I could just add and maybe just talk about one of the hydro programs, which is the Clean Industry and Innovation Rate, which is a lower rate on electricity for new businesses in the area of hydrogen, synthetic fuels, carbon capture and storage, and large data centers. So what we're trying to do with that program is to encourage the development of those industries, and particularly in hydrogen, where there are opportunities to decarbonize hard to decarbonize areas, heavy-duty trucking, for example, the whole train network as well, And there are many companies working on that. So what we want to do is attract them here to British Columbia and build industry here in British Columbia, create jobs, prosperity, and decarbonize our economy as a leader in Canada and in the world, as our Clean BC program has placed us. So I hope that's an answer. Thank you.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. Back to the Premier and just changing topics again. Could I ask your opinion on why we haven't mandated vaccinations for our provincial civil service? Government has direct control over 30, 40,000 people there. You could expand it to Crown corporations if you want. Should their employment not align with the vaccination values of the province? And have you given any thought as to the message it does or doesn't send by mandating it in certain sectors, but not under the direct control of the province?
Well, we certainly have any provincial public officials who are outward-facing, working with the public, are required to be vaccinated. We want to make sure that we move along quickly with the rest of the community. These are issues that are top of mind for Minister Dix, Dr. Henry, and I in our discussions with the head of the public service, with our discussions with CEOs like Chris O'Reilly at BC Hydro and others, to make sure that government is leading by example. We have a vaccine mandate in our long-term care facilities as well as in our acute care facilities, and we'll see how that rolls out in the weeks ahead, leading up to, I think it's October 26th for acute care. And we'll have more to say about the broader public service as we see results in terms of our immunization numbers continuing to rise. I'm very proud of the over 80% of British Columbians over the age of 12 who have stepped up to get vaccinations. And I want to particularly highlight the 18 to 24 group who oftentimes, even by me, was criticized for perhaps excessive partying at a time when that wasn't a good idea. That is the fastest growing section of our community seeking vaccinations. So I lift my hands to the 18 to 24s. We have a group 30 to 40, or I think it's 29 to 39, that are a bit slower. And I would really like to see that group of responsible adults be responsible, show some leadership within their family and their community, get the vaccine so we can get those numbers even higher.
Our last question today comes from Andrew McLeod, the Tyee.
Yeah, hi, Premier. On the topic of the day, groups have suggested that one of the barriers to electrification is the BC Utilities Commission and its focus on keeping rates low across all users. I'm wondering to what degree you share that concern and what, if anything, you might be doing about it.
I shared a wry smile, I guess you could call it, with CEO O'Reilly. Minister Ralston and I have been working on these issues for some time together in opposition and now in government. We need to have a regulated utility. It is important that the Utilities Commission review the work of BC Hydro to protect ratepayers, also to protect those that are in the Fortis service area. So I don't want to leave any doubt in anyone's mind of the value of the Utilities Commission, in my view. But it makes it harder for Hydro to move forward with programs like this. But I'm confident as they do their rate review in the weeks ahead, months ahead, that they'll get good direction and guidance from those who work with the Utilities Commission, major users, low-income users, so that we can develop the best policies possible. That's the intent of these reviews, and I'd like to think at the end of the day that's the best outcome. But when you're going through it, it's just like doing an exercise regime that you don't care for. At the end of the day, you're going to be better off for it, but that doesn't mean you have to enjoy it while you're doing it. And I think, without putting Chris on the spot, I think that the people have to go to the Utilities Commission, find it sometimes challenging, but I believe at the end of the day the outcome will be better. We do need to keep rates down. This program, as it's been constructed, will keep rates down. The Utilities Commission will see that, and if there's an opportunity for improvement, I'm sure they'll make those suggestions.
Andrew, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, many. But on a tangentially related topic, your government put out a reminder to people that there's a deadline coming up for commercial users of groundwater. I believe so far about 25% of the people who are supposed to seek licenses have. And I'm wondering what's going to happen in March. Is enforcement going to be stepped up, or what should people expect?
Well, first, Andrew, thanks for telling me that I need to answer the question by March rather than by later today. I'm not aware of the state of play on that file. I know Minister Conroy is the likely best person to answer that question. You know that I will keep talking if given the opportunity, but in this case, I think it's best that you talk to the minister responsible. It's not come on my desk in the past little while, so it's not top of mind for me.
That's all the time the Premier has today.
Sorry
Thanks
about that,
for
Andrew.
joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Switch fuels.